I was hanging with some dudes last night, and we smoked, and I had sex with one of them, and he recorded me, dude.
The best case scenario is your daughter is still alive, but being sex trafficked.
That's the worst case scenario to me. If she's not with us anymore, she's in peace.
In the city of Little Rock, on the evening of October 24th, Ebby Steppach, an 18-year-old, suddenly vanishes. Days later, her car is found abandoned with her belongings inside, launching a search for the high school senior student. But the case is not as cut and dry as it seems. Up to this day, there are still unsettling details in the case, leaving her family with questions that will never be answered. Ebby Steppach was born on the 31st of March, 1997, and was described as a funny, fiery spirit. She was always the person to make the room laugh. Ebby had dreams of becoming a cosmetologist and saved her money from the 2 jobs that she worked to invest in quality makeup she liked. So when her car was found with her makeup scattered inside, Lori, her mother, knew that something was entirely wrong. Ebby had a big heart for her family and for people who were less fortunate. In the year of 2015, Lori noticed that Ebby had started changing when she switched schools, and she believes that this led to Ebby's rebellion. Going into senior year, Ebby had transferred from a private to public school and was now attending Little Rock Central High School. During this time, Ebby moved out from her parents' home and started living with her grandparents as her rebelling had come too much for her parents to handle. They gave her an ultimatum, where she can behave respectfully or move out, and so Ebby opted to move out. She wasn't only living with her grandparents at the time, she also bounced around between staying with friends and her brother, Trevor. The nightmare begins on the 23rd of October. Ebby attends a party on the Friday to kick off the weekend with her friends her mother isn't very familiar with. The next day following the party, Ebby texts a friend telling him that she was raped while at the party by 4 men, and they had recorded her. She doesn't tell her friend who these young men are, but states that she's confused and is going to kill herself. Instead, Ebby sends a text to her stepfather, Michael, who was out having dinner with her mother, telling him that she had been raped and that she would like to let the authorities know with his help. Immediately, he responds, telling her that he will be over to her grandparents' house to meet her. However, there's no response from Ebby. He then phones her grandparents, who tells him that Ebby left saying that she was going to meet him. The two had made no such arrangements. In fact, as Michael mentioned in his text, he was going to meet her. Ebby's grandparents are the last people to see her when she left, claiming to meet her stepfather, and that text is the last time Michael ever hears from his stepdaughter Ebby. But let's take a step back for a minute. Around 7:30 p.m., Ebby's phone indicates that there were 2 phone calls made to Little Rock police, each about a minute long. At 7:50, Ebby contacts her stepfather asking for help to visit the authorities. This shows that Ebby was trying to reach out to police, but was probably too afraid to do that on her own. However, those 2 phone calls are not recorded, as officers told Lori that they have no records of the phone calls made to the department. Following Ebby leaving her grandparents' home, she sends text messages to the young men she claims assaulted her, threatening to contact the police. This piece of evidence was detected by Monty Vickers, a private investigator hired by Ebby's parents later on in the case. Again, Ebby's stepfather and grandmother try reaching her by phone, but their calls went unanswered. But there's someone whose call didn't go unanswered, Ebby's brother Trevor. Now Trevor had tried reaching Ebby multiple times, and at 5:30 p.m. the next day, Ebby picks up his call. Trevor asks his sister about where she is, and Ebby tells him that she's outside his house. He hangs up the line and heads outside to look for his sister, and is met with no one. Ebby wasn't there. He phones her again. This time she picks up, saying, "I messed up." Again, Trevor asks her for her location. She states that she's inside her car, and she doesn't know where her car is located. After this, Ebby hangs up the line, and that's the last time she spoke to any of her family members ever. Lori isn't convinced that her daughter would run away without even speaking to her family. However, officials were sure that this was a runaway and told them that Ebby would have to be missing for 12 hours before they can do anything. 3 days after Ebby spoke with her brother, her car is reported by a security guard at a park. He reports the vehicle is abandoned as it had been sitting in the lot next to the woods for some time. 2 days after the vehicle is reported, police investigates further and determines that the car belongs to 18-year-old Ebby. Lori couldn't even fathom the thought of her daughter's car being found without her daughter inside. She describes it as the most devastating thing that could ever happen. Only after a few days Ebby goes missing. Ebby's phone, clothes, makeup, and contact lenses were found in the car, and at this moment, Lori is led to believe that Ebby was being foul-played as a runaway, but nothing made sense, as Ebby would never leave her cell phone or car behind. Even with this shocking news, police still wouldn't take Ebby's case as an abduction and continued with the runaway theory. Nevertheless, police combed through the area of Shalamette Park where Ebby's car was last seen, and nothing came up. Ebby is now missing for weeks, when an area covered with clothes with a sponge is discovered by a teen. Police checks out the area and finds a leg with a shoe. Lori is given the shoe that looks familiar to a shoe that Ebby has had before. Nothing prepares her for this, but quite quickly, it is ruled out as unrelated. Police tells the family that the remains are animal remains, and the clothes had nothing to do with Ebby. Soon after, the family hires a private investigator, Monty Vickers, who decides to work with the Little Rock Police Department instead of starting a whole new investigation. However, Vickers does a lot more than what the officials were doing to speed along the case and get more answers for the family. The first thing he does is tracks down the security guard from the park who reported Ebby's vehicle, Guy Hooper. The security guard states that he had seen Ebby numerous times in the park, the first time being when he was advising people to leave the park and she was seen with 2 black young men. The second time, Ebby was seen in the backseat of a car with another black male, and the third time, she was back at the park with 2 other men. Hooper notices one guy who was always present the 3 times. He had seen Ebby in the park. He mentions that they were always hugging and kissing in the park. Hooper describes him as 5'7" with long dreads. The man identified by the security guard was never investigated. Ebby's case goes cold, and 2 years later, homicide detective Tommy Hudson steps into the case. Tommy reveals that there were some mistakes in the case from the beginning and now had to start from scratch to retrace the little clues surrounding Ebby's disappearance. When Hudson took over the case, he admits that surveillance footage, neither the interviewing of witnesses were done, and this could be because the police had deemed the teen as a runaway from the beginning. Hudson returns to the park where Ebby's car was found back in 2015. The car was found close to a drainage pipe, and Hudson recalled that it had rained a bit the days after Ebby went missing. He instantly had a hunch to look in the drainage pipe, and if Ebby was indeed dead, then she may have been washed up in the drain pipe, which would make it difficult to find her. Tommy obtains maps from the drainage pipes in the city and takes his team down to the park where they sent down cameras into the drainage pipes. The equipment hit obstructions on both ends of the drainage pipe, and Hudson was given the go-ahead to dig up the section of the pipe. They start digging for anything at all, and there, on May 22nd of 2018, Ebby's remains are found inside the drainage pipe.
Tonight, police have confirmed that human remains found in Little Rock Park this week are those of missing 18-year-old Ebby Steppach. Thank you for joining us at 10. I'm Bob Clausen.
And I'm Ashley Ketz. Those remains discovered.
Yeah, Bob, we've seen cars shuffle in through the park to pay their final respects. We are here at the park. This is the memorial behind me. It's just about 30 feet away from where Ebby's remains were found. It's actually right on the other side of this tree line here, those drainage pipes that investigators dug up about 24 hours ago.
Hudson was interviewed where he states, "The blockage was pulled up by the bulldozer and turned around. And there she was, right in front of me," Hudson said. There was no doubt it was her. When Ebby's remains were found, Lori was devastated that it had taken such a long time for this to happen, and not to mention, she was right next to her car. A few years ago, When detectives searched the park, they came up with nothing. She believes that if they had found Ebby sooner, her killer would have already been investigated. Her remains were sent off immediately to the medical examiner's office. Detective Tommy Hudson retired and was called to step into another case, and after he left, Ebby's case remained as a standstill. As of now, suspects have not been made public and the case remains cold. Trevor, Ebby's older brother, died at 35 as a result of a heart attack, and Lori believes that Ebby's disappearance contributed. Lori said she later found out that after Ebby disappeared, Trevor spent his lunch hours searching the trunks of abandoned cars for his sister and traveling to other states following up on the tips. Ebby's family is searching for answers about how their lovely 18-year-old ends up in a drain without a solid lead about who could have done this. Now, there are some theories in Ebby's case. After Ebby's body was found in the drain, people, even the police department, had their theories of Ebby having a mental breakdown. Police believed that Ebby stuffed herself into the drain pipe in an attempt to take her own life. An episode surrounding Ebby aired on Dr. Phil, where Eric, a guy who says he was dating Ebby at the time, said that he had seen her the night she disappeared. He stated that Ebby wasn't her normal self, and the state she was in was almost as if she knew something was going to happen to her.
You said that when you did talk to Ebby, she was scared.
She just wasn't her normal self. I mean, you knew Ebby, like, you knew how happy of a person she was, like, and it was just like it wasn't there anymore. Like, that was gone, and it was like not even a sense of urgency, just like she knew that something was about to happen. Like, she almost knew that she wasn't gonna be okay.
Later that night, when her family couldn't get in touch with her, he called her.
And she answered for a second. That was the last time I talked to her.
Eric believes it could have been a terrible accident with some of her friends.
They might have gave her something, and she had a bad reaction, and like they tried to, leave and come back and realize she was gone. And I feel like that's honestly what happened. And like they probably put her down there.
People also believe that maybe the guys who were involved in the sexual assault had something to do with it after Ebby revealed to them that she was going to see authorities. Still, Ebby's case remains cold. No suspects have been named, and we don't know if any would be named. As the years go on, her family wishes that something would change, someone would be named, and that police wouldn't leave them in the dark.